Hi everyone, and welcome back, and thanks for joining me for the making of the Marilyn Monroe cerise dress from the film To Marry A Millionaire, designed by William Travilla. I posted an introductory video to this a couple of weeks ago, which I will link in the description below. In this part, I will be covering the making of the underbodice and the skirt. So let's get into making this amazing dress. I'm going to start by cutting out a toile for the corset so that I can check that the style lines are correct, as the back has some quite interesting details. I'm cutting all the pattern pieces for the toile with a 1-inch seam allowance all the way around. Once the pieces are all cut out, I'll sew them together and then try the toile on my mannequin. Here's the toile for the corset. I'm going to take it in under the bust to the waist here, and also above the bust but just off the front panel, I think, to pull it in at the front. And then I think that's really all it needs. The back fits quite well. The red lines here indicate where the boning will go. There will also be a bone down the side seam. Here you can see me marking the new seam line from the alterations that I pinned on the mannequin. Once I've marked these out, I'll take the toile to pieces and then sew them up again using the new seam allowance line. Here's the toile with the alterations worked through. The fit is a lot better now, and you can also see here the pencil line is the new boning position. When I make it up in the cotton net, the only thing I might do is do a tiny Hollywood dart across here, but that's something I'll have a look at once it's made up in the real fabric. What I'm going to do next is to take this toile apart and then use this as my pattern for cutting out the cotton net. I've now taken the toile apart to use as my pattern. I've laid this on top of the bobbin net, which I'll now cut out. Here, I'm sewing the panels up again using a 1-inch seam allowance. The panels are made up of a double layer of the fabric. After the panels are sewn together, I sew in the casings that the bones will be inserted into. I'm now going to start cutting out the skirt panels. For the skirt panels, I'm again using a 1 inch seam allowance around the waist and down the long side seams, and then a 4 inch hem allowance. After cutting out my skirt panels, I then tack in all the necessary lines that I need for reference on the centre back panels. These lines will be the references I use when sewing up the back, as the centre back seam is off centre and slightly towards the left hand side. Here you can see me pinning the two panels together and then machining along the tack line. The fabric wasn't quite wide enough for cutting the quarter circle skirt drape, so I had to add an extension onto the bottom, which you see here. So here we are with a finished, or rather almost finished, corset and skirt. As you can see, there isn't much boning in the corset. This was something that I've seen quite a lot on the insides of Marilyn's dresses. She didn't need that much support. What you see of her figure is actually her, rather than a lot of inner construction going on. Also on the skirt, you can see how at the back the split is actually off centre. It's slightly to the left side of the dress rather than being completely in the centre back where they normally are. When I was making the skirt, I ran into a couple of problems. When I was doing the drape, I was pressing it and then suddenly realised that there were all these mystery marks all over the fabric. Don't know what they were. They weren't there when I cut it out, so I ended up having to recut a new drape. And then when it was all skirt was done and I was pinning it onto the corset ready for sewing, I caught myself on one of the pins and ended up getting blood all down the front of the skirt. So also had to recut the front of the skirt. So thank God we had enough fabric after buying up the whole roll that they had in the shop, as they said they didn't know whether they'd ever be able to get it again. While I was doing the research for the dress and looking at the film, I noticed in the scene where Marilyn enters the restaurant that she seemed to be carrying something else in her hand besides her clutch bag and the skirt drape. And this looks like it was a sequined wrap. I contacted the Travilla archive to see if they had any information on what it was and what it looked like, but unfortunately There were no photographs taken of her wearing it, not even for the costume continuity. They acknowledged that there had been a wrap, but there was no information on it, which is a shame because it would have been something I would have liked to have created to go with this dress. Thanks for joining me in this part of starting off the How to Marry a Millionaire dress. Join me in part 2, where I will be cutting and draping the bodice and sequining the strap and belt. I've done a little sample of the beading already, which is here, using the different sequins that I had. I'm not sure if the big sequins are too big, because when you see it on the film they don't read as different sizes, but then when you see photographs of her you can actually see that there are different sizes, so I might take them down a size. I'm not really sure yet, so that's something I'll decide once I really get going on the sequining, but I just wanted to show you the part that I'd already started to give you an idea of how it will look. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all again very soon.